Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for being here. Today, I will give a talk which has a little bit about science, of course, but it's more focused on a story. So it's more like a case of an example of a company that tried and is still trying to do technology transfer from the university to the market. So this is a case study, and case studies, of course, are good because they are told in the first person and so on, but of course, they have limitations. So please, some things are generalized, may be generalized, other things not, but at least some of those probably are things that may happen to every other company or every other group of persons that is trying actually to make things that are research-based to go to be used by society. So this is what I will talk about today. I came from Coimbra. Coimbra is a city in the middle of Portugal. You may see it there in the map. It's more or less the region between Oporto and Lisbon. It's a very old town, but I guess it's what I want to prove is not only tradition is important in Coimbra, but also innovation. So a very old town, one of the 10 most old university towns in Coimbra, but in Europe, sorry. And I came from the Coimbra LaserLeap. So the story that I will try to tell you, somehow it's a textbook history, because what you see here is some nomenclature that you can find in Frascati manual of research. And what you will see is something that actually evolved from basic research. This is fundamental research, things that we do in the lab, where we actually, the outputs of these are scientific papers, but then with a very particular moment, evolved to applied research. Well, this applied research, of course, the objectives are slightly the same, but now we wanted to develop technologies. And we actually were more looking after patents than after research articles. So there are slightly different from these two kinds of research. And then we gave the other step. And the other step was actually given inside the company. And these were typically called experimental development, but the outputs are, well, very different. Well, prototypes, scale-up of processes, in our case, clinical trials, so and eventually products to go to the market. So this is very different ways of doing research. We somehow went from one to the other, and this story fits more or less the nomenclature of the manual. So somehow it's a textbook history. Well, it started long ago, of course, and what you can see here in the left, it's an iceberg. It's, well, bottom up, so it's in the reverse way of seeing it. The iceberg, the top of the iceberg that is out of water is here, but of course there is a lot more inside water. And this is a cartoon to show that we actually did for a long time basic research without actually thinking that you would do a company. And this is really things that happened for a long time. Well, for us is between 10 and 20 years, until we somehow came up to a question, to a problem that might be solved for something that we were actually working for years and years, but not actually connecting it. And what made the innovation probably was connected to different things. Well, the problem was the following. We needed an efficient method for skin permeation. This is, you will see in a few moments that how this problem took us to the innovation, to a patent, and then to a company. But I will explain it later. But from that problem, we started to do what I would call applied research. So we were focused in solving this problem. In basic research, we were typically focused in solving scientific problems, to come up with theories, to observations that we had in the lab. We are a Coimbra laser lab, so we are a laser lab. Typically, we follow fast reactions with fast spectroscopy. So we were quite used to use lasers and fast other light sources to follow our photochemical reactions. But now we had a problem, and there was something that we were developing, not thinking of it, that was photoacoustics. We actually mastered the science of photoacoustics that could help to solve a completely unrelated problem. We focused on that during 3 years, and at the end of those 4 years, we actually had what we thought was a solution. And that was the time we thought in doing a company. Of course, for that, two things were needed. One thing is that probably we need to have a patent. Remember, this is a company, a technology-based company. The patent will actually save the market for this technology for some time. It was a fundamental part of our strategy in the company. And of course, we needed money. With these two things, we came up to what I would call experimental development. From this, we had to do, and we are a medical and aesthetic device company, so we had to do some prototypes, we had to do some regulatory work in order to, in more or less 5 years, to get to the market. And mostly what I will tell you today is about these last years, these years that are here in pink, that are years of experimental development that we did inside the company. In the last 5 years, and I will tell you later, we have somehow to do a reinvention of the company. And this reinvention of the company that with the problem that happened in 2019, 2020, we have to reinvent our business model. We have to reinvent the way we deal with the company. So there was a big step here that I will also tell you this story. Well, every company needs some founders, some guys that actually are willing to give the next step, giving a step from the university to a company. And those were the guys in this case. So Gonçalo was a PhD student, then Luis Arnaud, a professor, and I was a researcher, a staff researcher at Coimbra Laser Lab. So the first photo on the left is a photo of when we decided to make the company. The photo on the right, well, it is in just the same place. Is a photo of 4 years later with the same guys. We actually look younger and look better 5 years later. You will soon know why we look better 5 years better 5 years later after actually working on the company and so on. Well, doing a company can be like a roller skate with ups, downs, with barriers to carry on. It can be a difficult thing, and I cannot speak in half an hour of everything. This path can also be seen as a reaction path from very stable states on the bottom with low energy, very stable states, and also, of course, very unstable states, but that we have to overcome in order to get to the stable ones. And the story actually started with a very stable place at the university where we did research. What we wanted, well, we figured out that we could solve a problem. And this is important. In order to set a company, probably we need a problem and a solution, because we eventually need to sell it. So we have to solve a problem to someone. Well, we wanted to actually have a company. The first step that we had to climb somehow was to have property, intellectual property. So how we could patent our findings. Were they new? Were they useful? Were they really an innovation or not? Then, of course, we have to need to reach to the market. And well, my illustration of the market here, you may think it's a very naive illustration and not very sophisticated. But in the end, this is a fruit market. Well, there are things that these ladies in this fruit market actually do that are equal for a sophisticated medical device. You need to have people eager to buy it. We need to find to be a solution for a problem. So those things has to be taught, just as the ladies there think that this is the right place to sell their fruits. We have to check what is the right place to sell our medical devices. So in the end, we have to have a business model. If we don't have a business model, so it's very difficult to actually get on with the company and actually develop things that are a need to someone. So I will center somehow my talk in these two things, that a technology-based company needs to have patented property, intellectual property, needs to have a business model, and I will tell you some story how we actually pass through these barriers. Of course, to pass through these barriers, you need something else. Typically, we need money. So I will also state this part of the story. It's a part of the story that is undoubtedly needed and sometimes is not told. For doing a company, for setting a company, we need to get money from somewhere. So the talk more or less will be about how to finance a technology-based company, how to make the process of patenting, and how to find a business model. And I will, the word there is one business model, but as you will see at the end, maybe during our history, we changed business model. So the business model that we have at the beginning is not necessarily the ones that we have at the end. Okay, it is appropriate to start with the laser pulse, because we actually came from a laser lab, and everything in our lab starts with the laser pulse. And the technology or the science that we actually worked for years, photoacoustics, starts with a pulsed laser or a modulated light, and is the study of the acoustic generation, or you can call it ultrasound generation, by the irradiation of a material by a pulsed laser. We were mostly interested in doing this in the thermoelastic regime. This is, we will raise a temperature after absorption of the laser pulse, we'll raise the temperature of the medium, this heat deposition will raise the temperature, a very good heat transfer within the material will lead to an expansion. A confined expansion actually is a pressure wave. So we were in the business, but scientifically, of doing pressure waves. This is of transforming a laser pulse in a pressure pulse. So this is time versus pressure. When the laser hits the material, we'll get the pressure pulse that has a positive and a negative tail. So for years and years, and we started to do this in liquids, then we'll pass to materials. We were just trying to do the best, the more with the most amplitude of these pressure waves, and to study this phenomenon. Of course, we were chemists. We came up with new materials for this. We came up with very efficient materials of perform this laser pulse. And these actually could come for years and years, and we could actually be in the lab for a lot of time with this, doing these pressure waves and be very efficient at it. But one problem arises, and the nature of the problem was quite unrelated. So a colleague of one of our founders, Luis Arnaud, works in medicinal chemistry. And he was working in a drug, a drug for cancer. He used photodynamic therapy. Again, it's a therapy when you use a molecule plus light in order to activate this molecule and destroy the cancer cells. As any medicine, there is always, even in very efficient drugs, there is always the problem of how the drugs reach the target. So you can see here, for instance, in the right, melanoma, the skin cancer. And as you see, the melanoma, the tumor cells are quite inside the skin. Actually, if you put like a cream or something to pass on to the melanoma, it has to pass the stratum corneum, which is this barrier that it is represented, and then to reach the epidermis and then the dermis to pass on. But it's quite difficult to pass this first layer. So Luis Arnaud was trying to find a way to reach the cancer tissue in melanoma. And now we join two worlds, sort of saying. We join a world of pressure waves and with a world of cancer chemistry. Two quite separate worlds that came together in an idea. It seems that for the drug that they were developing to reach the cancer cells, it had to breach through the stratum corneum. Something had to be done to the stratum corneum in order for the drug to reach. What about a pressure wave? This is a representation of the stratum corneum. This is a very thin layer of cells, but very compact cells. What if a pressure wave, so a very high pressure for a very, very, very short time, could reach this stratum corneum and breach in order for the drug to penetrate the stratum corneum? So this was the idea, and actually this was if this actually happened, if this hypothesis happened, where we thought we could have an invention, something new. So the idea was to have this target that absorbs the pulse of laser and reaches a pressure wave that reaches the skin, passing to a gel that has the drug. If the drug comes in, it can actually reach the tissue of cancer tumor. So we tried. And again, for trying this, we have to get out of the lab. So this is us in 2010 in a quite different setup. So I'm actually, this is an optical fiber, and you can see that I'm having in the tip of this optical fiber that as the pulse of laser will come from this optical fiber, and in the tip there is the material that will transform the pulse of light into a pulse of pressure. And we eventually were thinking that maybe this pulse of pressure will breach the skin and will make the photosensitizer to go inside. And actually this happened. So here in the left is without the pressure waves, and in the right is with the pressure waves. You see here the stratum corneum that protects us, and here the epidermis. So what happened with just, well, less than 1 minute of pressure waves? You can see that all the photosensitizer, the drug, is in the epidermis, homogeneous spread in the epidermis. You can see a confocal and confocal microscopy even better. What was the actual result? With just 1 minute of pressure waves, we could actually deliver the same quantity. This is an absorption spectra that says that we could actually put an amount 5 times bigger than without pressure waves. Actually, with 1 minute of pressure waves, we can get the same amount of passive permeation 4 hours. With these results, we thought we had something new. Actually, these results were possible because we were somehow in the middle of 3 worlds. Well, in one side, a basic research on photoacoustic for more than 10 years. In the other side, knowledge of materials chemistry to do the right materials in order to transform light into pressure. But a third world of cancer research and medicinal chemistry, and we are in the intersection of these worlds. So in our case, the innovation came out of interdisciplinarity. Just because we were in the middle of these worlds, we could actually find something new and connect the dots between different things. Well, we decided to do a company. Again, for doing this company, we needed money. Where we got the money for it? Well, there are many ways to get money. One of the ways is get money from prizes. There are a lot of prizes. We realize that many people are willing to give money to startups. Of course, we have to convince them that we have a very interesting idea, that we are the right guys to actually make this idea work. But this is important, and it was very important for us on the start of our company. Then, of course, there are also more non-diluting funding, and this is, well, funds that typically scientists know better. So those funds from the Portuguese state or from the European Union, which are always non-diluting, but actually also helped a lot. Of course, there is also the traditional way, diluting funding. And by diluting, I'm saying that these last ones would get stocks of our company and the other ones will not get. So, but they are different, and we actually used all of these kinds of funding, from prizes to state or European funds, to funds from venture capital, business angels, some strategic partners, of even friends, family, and foes. Everybody contributed for our company, and for a while, the main activity that we had was to do pitches for these guys, to try to convince them that we had a good idea and that should help us to go and make a company out of our idea. Actually, I will show you one of these pitches. And actually, you could tell me later on if you would give us your money in order to support it. But I find this is a 3-minute pitch that we did at SPI. And this is something that that you probably know. SPI, it's a conference that typically many people from our labs go. And they still have a contest that they give some money to new ideas. So I give you 3 minutes of my pitch in order to sell this idea that I already told you to solve this problem of skin permeation.
Carlos, we cannot hear.
Oh, sorry. So you cannot hear, you have to believe me, because you cannot hear, sorry for that. You have to believe me that it was a good pitch, because we actually won that pitch. We won that competition. We still, we went on and to try more molecules. Not only these photosensitizer for skin cancer, but other molecules. Here are 2 examples. So one is vitamin C precursor, and the other is hyaluronic acid. So you can see that in hyaluronic acid, without the pressure waves, well, almost no hyaluronic acid pass on to the epidermis. But with, on the right, with the photoacoustic waves, with the pressure waves, a lot of, again, hyaluronic acid is spread all over the epidermis. There is one thing in common with these two molecules. They are not drugs. They are actually molecules that are quite used in aesthetics. And the reason for that is that because we started to think that one good target for our technology was the aesthetic market. So what we did afterwards was to give another step. Now we were not trying in animal models or in vitro or in skin, ex vivo skin. We would like to try in actual persons. And we start to try this hyaluronic acid molecule, which is a big molecule, very difficult to pass on, in a trial with persons, with actual persons. To do this, there was another barrier that we have to pass. Our instrument, you see, it's a laser. Although you don't see light because all light is absorbed by the material that transforms light into pressure. But we have to have some regulatory affairs with European medicine agents and with regulatory agencies that deal with the CE mark. So our instruments had to pass some regulations. So this was a barrier that we had to do in order to reach to do this kind of trials with people. And in the right, you see that people actually like it. It seemed that it worked. Well, it worked. And now I show you something that, of course, it's possible because we came from academia. We did a second test with human volunteers. But at this time, these volunteers were actually students from the medicinal chemistry degree at the chemistry department. In this, we tried to prove that our technology was safe and it was painless. We actually asked persons. We used the two arms of the person and didn't say where we actually used the technology. You can see here that, well, almost everybody, not everybody, but almost everybody didn't actually make any difference from laser off or laser on. So this technology is painless. So it's efficient and is painless. In the left, there is another very interesting result from the test that we did with persons. This interesting result is about transepidermal water loss. This is sweat. And what you can see is that we actually make the transepidermal water loss, so the water that comes out of the skin of a person, much higher with the pressure waves. But the interesting thing is that when we put the laser off, the transepidermal water loss comes to the basic numbers. We are not actually doing nothing definitive to skin. So this is safe. It happens for a while. It's a pressure wave that does a skin quake, but then it's quite safe. So we have the technology. We had money for this. We had to do a patent and prototype this. We had regulatory clearance, and we have trials in clinical environment. So we have to do all these steps that took us 5 to 6 years to do all these steps. But in the end, we actually went from bench to, bedside. Well, this is something that we typically talk when we have a medical technology. We didn't have a medical technology. We had a aesthetic technology. But this is actually a picture of our bench when we were trying to a lot of materials to do these pressure waves. And in the right, a picture of like 6 years afterwards when we had our first device sold to a clinical aesthetic clinic. Of course, there are other things, not only dealing with pigs, that we have to do if we are in the company. One thing is cell. Remember, we have to have clients to be a company. So this is another kind of activities in a fair, for instance, or in a workshop, doing demonstrations of our technologies to beauticians. So if you want to do this, be aware that you need clients, you need to reach them. One thing that I want to focus, to emphasize, is the part of intellectual property. We started with a provisional patent in 2011. This is something that it's very interesting and we can do in Portugal. It's not possible to do in every country, but they give you 1 year to present something that is not really a patent, but is already the idea. Then we had 1 year to actually fill the patent, a definitive patent, and we did it. So in this space, we could actually solve some problems, make some modifications, improve our arguments of patentability. Another important thing, it's here. We started LaserLeap at 8 September, and we have a license from our university a few days later. Our technology was actually invented inside university. In order for this intellectual property to be explored by LaserLeap, we needed a license from the university. And this is a really important step. And of course, if we didn't have it, we could not start the company. So I will speak later on a little bit more about this, but this is important. This chronogram is only to show you that it takes time. It takes time. Patents take time. We only actually get the conceded patent in Portugal in 2014. And in the middle, we have a lot of interactions with the patent attorneys, the patent offices, in order to respond questions and so on. And this is just to Portugal. This is just what happened in Portugal. We actually had the patent in 32 countries. In a lot of countries all over the world, in a process that actually took years. Again, license deal is important in this process. In our case, we did a license deal with university where we pay royalties. After a short period where we didn't pay anything, we paid royalties of what we sell. So a percentage of what we sell goes back to the university. This was a good deal for us. The part that we didn't pay for some time was good because we didn't have much money. And of course, the fact that we only pay if we sell our equipment, if we sell our devices. So this was a good deal, and I'm not completely sure that is available everywhere, but with our university, it was like this. Of course, we have to spend money. And in these first years of the company, I show you here that we have to make an effort to actually support the patent. For instance, in 2013, 36% of the budget of the company was for patents. Then, of course, there were years that was less. This is only for one family of patents. And it was 20% again in 2016. So this is actually a lot of money for a patent. This, of course, was due to the fact that we put the patent in a lot of countries, maybe too many countries, too much countries. We have to do a lot of translations, deal with a lot of lawyers, and this was really something that was expensive and somehow has to be considered. So I put it here because this has to be considered for this kind of ventures. Well, there are a lot of problems with patents, and I will not give you a solution for all of the problems. There is a conflict between patenting and being in academia, and this is a conflict, for instance, of the concept of publish or perish, very competitive academic landscape. We actually filed the patent in 2011 of work that we did between 2008 and 2010. But the paper about this work only came out in 2013, after we actually were sure that the patent was good. So there is a delay between the work done and the paper published. And this is a problem both for people and also for agencies. Well, when you are supported by public funds, they expect you to actually publish and to be fast on it. And we were not fast. So we had to wait. I have to tell you that publications, peer-reviewing publications are important not only in academia, but also in companies. So the validation that is given by publication in peer-reviewed journals, it was very important for our part in the company, not only our part in academia. We actually had problems, and there are a lot of problems, for instance, with thesis. During our part, students, we were people studying and doing research thesis within this kind of research that we could use in the company. Well, theses have to be published, and there are dates to do it. So we can wait for published papers. Maybe we cannot wait to do it with thesis. Actually, we have a lot of experience with patents, but even so, we have another kind of problem with the thesis. We had a master thesis that had data that we actually thought that could be in a patent. And this, did not allow to make a patent. So this is something that I don't have solutions, but we have to be quite attentive. How can we get an equilibrium between patenting and the academia life? Well, it's difficult, but there are some things that we can do. Well, of course, pay attention to what is published. We didn't have to pay attention to this master thesis that was published and somehow avoided one patent. Patents cost money and are a lot of work. So choose what is really worth patenting. Don't patent everything that is in your work. Take attention and only choose what is really worth it. Remember, it has to be a novelty, but it has to be useful also. There are things that can avoid our errors. For instance, thesis, at least in Portugal, can have at least 1 year embargo. This is a temporal publication interdiction. They are defended, but the jury actually, this defense of the thesis is done in secrecy, and so a thesis may not be public for at least 1 year or even more. So this it's useful, and we now use it more and more in order to preserve things that maybe can be patented. Okay, there were a lot of lives of LaserLeap. So get back to the company. For instance, LaserLeap had 3 symbols, and actually it's funny. The first symbol was made by a friend. The second symbol was made by an external company, so we paid. And the third symbol was actually made inside by a designer that was in the payroll. So these symbols are different, but also see the evolution and how, as a company, we were at first only a couple of friends that ask another friend to do a symbol. Then we are an established company, and then even a bigger company that can do inside a thing like the design of the symbol. We kept working, and now I'm back to science. For instance, this focused ultrasound we can use this ultrasound in other ways. This is we use for our devices planar targets. If we use curved targets, we could have focused ultrasound, for instance. This focused ultrasound is quite different than the ultrasound that we are using in skin. For instance, it can make holes. This is not actually safe, but it can be useful for other stuff. We started to evolve, and then again, this is basic research. But now we were attentive to this and to what this kind of pressure waves could do and could be useful. Again, we can actually use these pressure waves to do other things, to put, but not very strong. If the pressure waves are very smooth, we could use it with cells. So other ideas that we actually work on was to use the pressure waves to put plasmids inside cells in order to make cells work with the orders of these plasmids. Now we actually, again, we go to basic research. And I'm showing these two slides because even in company, we are always going back to basic research. We are always doing this movement again and again. And here is one application where we went back to basic research. What we thought is that if we use pressure waves that have more components of higher frequencies, these pressure waves, which is here the example done with a pecasine laser, we could interact with the cell membrane. So back to the lab, back to the basic research in order again to get an application. And the application is here. We actually can transfect cells. This is put things inside cells while the cells are still living. So this is an example of 5% transfection. This is not a very big number, but this is a proof of concept that we could deliver inside cells. Not only breach the barrier of the skin, but here breach the barrier of a cell in order to put things inside cells. But then it's really the way we work. Go back to basic research in order to find applications. So we worked with a business model from 2013 to 2019 with one patent, with one technology, and with the application that I explained to you in skin. And we were selling to beauty clinics, and this worked out very goodly between 2017 and 2019. One thing happened in 2019 that actually made us change everything, and this was COVID. Well, with COVID, we had 2 years that we could not sell anything. So we had to change our business model. So between 2019 and 2010, we actually did one sole sell of our device. So we have to resource to other stuff. And one thing that we actually did was research and development service to other companies. We actually minorate and ameliorate our financial problems with joint ventures with bigger companies in order to travel these quite difficult times of COVID. But we emerged in 2020 with a different thinking and a different business model. Well, the thing is that all this work of 2 years made us think that we could actually have more patents. We have more technology. So now we are a multi-technology company with applications, with various applications of photoacoustics, but also applications of photodynamic therapy. And the applications are not only on skin, but on oncology or cardiology. More, we did a very audacious move. We started to have direct sales in retail. We were selling for beauty clinics. Then this came to zero. When we emerged from the pandemic, we did this move to directly sell. Here, for instance, and this is interesting because it's going back for where we started, going back to tumors. Here is an example of a new technology that we are now actually developing. This is a model, an animal model with a tumor. You can see the tumor here, here, and here. And the difference between the photography in the middle and the one in the right is that in the right, we actually prepare the tumor with photoacoustic waves. And we are using immunotherapy. So immunotherapy is a very good therapy for tumors, for cancer. But the problem with, again, a lot of drugs have, it doesn't reach cancer. So we thought we have to prepare the tissue, the solid tissue of tumors to receive these immunosuppressors. And what we actually found, and in this case, we have an intravenous administration of the drug, is that with the priming process, this is, again, the pressure waves, we could have 24 more times of the drug inside the tumor than without it. Again, what we did, well, we followed the path again. We found out for a patent, we filed for a patent, and we find non-diluting funding. This, again, comes from the state, comes from prices, in order to actually support our first efforts on this. In order to go to humans, we will need a kind of diluting funding that comes from venture capital. But in the first part of this development, we are using non-diluting funding. And this, again, it worked a lot for us. Another example, and now it's photodynamic therapy. This is an endotracheal tube. So endotracheal tubes are used to make people to actually respiration when they have some problems with their lungs. So with the air comes in, and these tubes are quite used when people are in hospitals. But as air comes in and out, it also brings microbial. It also makes things that makes infections. So when people use one of these tubes, they always use also antibiotics. So we modified the tube with a molecule that actually, by photodynamic therapy, kills the microbial in the tube. And you can see the growth in the control in one of our endotracheal tubes. Again, we went to development steps. This is in the endotracheal tube with light. That is the antimicrobial effect on it. Again, we went to animal models. And again, we filed the patent and we look for non-diluting funding. In this case, European non-diluting funding. So again, we are reaching in another technology the same path, from an invention to develop to what I would call applied research, to experiment, to the first phases of experimental development by using non-diluting funding. Again, in order to pass to humans with this kind of technology, we would need diluting funding and venture capital. And this is another example, again, in photodynamic therapy for diabetic foot ulcers, where we again made a new patent and used that non-diluted funding in order to prove that with photodynamic therapy, we could actually have an antimicrobial effect in diabetic foot ulcers. These three technologies that I show you have one specific characteristic that is important for the company. It might not be important in academia, but is important for the company. Those are very, very important medical conditions. So we have a market. So this is actually a difference from what we actually do in the academia, in the university, and what we do in the company. The data is actually the same kind of data that we'll collect in the university that we are collecting in the company. All the procedures, all the methodology in scientific terms is the same. But we only do in the company things that will actually have a market, and typically a huge market. Well, the big audacious novelty of changing of business model, which was a complete change, was to sell our device directly. Here is a picture of in a shopping mall of our technology. You can see again the laser goes through here. Here there is this this transducer of light into pressure that is not much different from the one that was 15 years ago in our materials chemistry lab, and now it's working in shopping malls. And yes, we are making this directly to the public in a quite different business model. Well, we are now a very different company from where we started. We are a multi-technology company. We have multiple applications. We started with one patent. We have now 4 to 5 patents and still growing. And we started in the aesthetic market. We are now in the medical device market, which is a huge difference. Of course, we have, and this is just the patent spending, this patent spending growth. We have to consider every patent that we file, it has a price tag with it. And this is another thing that it's important when we are thinking that we have an invention. If we have an invention, we have to support this patent, because in the long run, we actually want to sell it and to have the patent market protection. So, but this costs money. And those decisions are decisions that you have to do inside the company. Okay, I'm finishing my talk. As this is an internet talk, I would like to finish with a cat, with a very beautiful cat. And this is to show you the 7 lives of LaserLeap. A chronogram with the 7 lives of a cat. So this is a bit clumsy, but I will go through it. Well, we started in 2008, and of course we started long before, as I show you. We started long before because there is a bunch of years on basic research that actually evolved to applied research. We decided to make a patent. This was in 2011. We were supported mostly by non-diluting funding. So this was really important because we needed the money, and we at this time we probably could not convince venture capital to enter our venture. So we had the technology. In 2013, we really started the company making prototypes to what was in 2015 with already a very workable prototype. And all this path to making prototypes was helped by venture capital and business angels. Then we have to climb another barrier. And this barrier was a regulatory barrier. To get the permissions, to get the CE mark, and also to make a proof on humans. So we actually made a proof on animal models with the drug. Now we wanted to go to aesthetic targets. And for that, we did some trials with humans until market launching. That happened in 2018, roughly in 2018. Then we were, well, there is something that I actually didn't spoke to you, managed buyout. We actually changed our partners, but the other life that we have that we had in LaserLeap was COVID, where we were starting to sell in Spain, in Portugal. Beauticians were starting to use our instrument, but this stopped with COVID. So we have to reinvent ourselves. And the way we reinvent ourselves was go back to the lab, go back to the basics, and actually develop new technologies. And the same path that we actually did, we now are doing with 3 more technologies. And again, a very audacious move of changing of business model. And now we are selling our instruments in the aesthetic market to directly to the consumers. So at least we get 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 lives. I guess we have 2 more for 2 years to come. But those were actually difficulties that we had to overcome, and somehow well, some successful, some not so successful, but that transformed the company. The company is not the same at the beginning that is today. And of course, we are still here to live at least more 2 lives. And well, this, of course, in half an hour, 40 minutes, was more or less of what I wanted to say to you. Of course, the company is a lot of people, and during these years, is a lot of people. I have the names of some of the people that are with us at this moment, but I could have put the names of a lot of more that make this part with us. And of course, well, thank you. I will be very, very happy to answer any questions. And thank you for listening for this very short talk about, from 2008 to 2025, a lot of years of work in a technological-based company.